Some words educate, others inspire, but there are words that do far more. They change you. The Bible is filled with such words. It is not a passive book. It is alive, active, and personal. Not just history, but a voice that still speaks directly into your life, cutting through the noise and reaching the heart. This is not just about reading. It is about encountering. Each verse has the potential to awaken something within you, to bring healing, to give direction, to speak peace into anxiety. The Bible is not asking for perfection. It invites honesty. And with honesty comes transformation. From the first verse of Genesis to the final word in Revelation, the message is consistent. You are seen, you are loved, and your life is meant for more than survival. Scripture calls light into darkness, hope into hopelessness, and purpose into confusion. This journey is not about religious obligation. It is about connection. These verses we will explore are not just poetic lines, they are lifelines. They carry the power to rebuild broken places, restore identity, and renew your spirit. You are not here by accident, and neither are the words you are about to hear. They are alive, they are waiting, and they just might change everything. Do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. There are moments when fear slips in quietly, and others when it crashes in like a wave. It can arrive in the form of an unexpected phone call, an unwelcome diagnosis, a sudden loss, or the uncertainty of a decision that carries too much weight. Fear often presents itself as logic, whispering worst-case scenarios and feeding doubt. It paralyzes, it isolates. It convinces you that you are alone, that you are unprepared, that the unknown is too big for you to face. That is why Isaiah 41 verse 10 has become a lifeline for so many. The verse does not begin with strategies or solutions. It begins with a voice that breaks through the noise of anxiety, a voice that says, "Do not fear." Not because danger does not exist, not because life is always smooth, but because of one truth: for I am with you. That is the reason fear can be dismantled, not the absence of hardship, but the presence of God. This first line alone carries more power than we often realize. It reminds us that fear is not just an emotion, it is a belief. It is the belief that we are alone, that what lies ahead is beyond our strength. But when God says, "Do not fear, for I am with you," He is addressing that belief at its core. He is saying, you are not facing this by yourself. There is a nearness in that promise, a closeness that changes everything. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. Dismay is deeper than fear. It is a sense of being overwhelmed, a state of being emotionally undone. And here, again, the antidote is not found in ourselves, but in Him. The phrase, "I am your God," is personal. It is not a distant deity speaking from the heavens. It is a God who claims you, who sees you, who says, "You are mine." That personal connection turns panic into peace. When God says, "I will strengthen you," He is not offering motivation. He is promising impartation. This is not about you pulling yourself together. This is about Him pouring strength into places where yours has run dry. His strength is not temporary. It is not based on performance. It does not rely on your mood or your circumstances. It comes from an unshakable source, His own character. The next words, "I will help you," might seem simple, but they hold extraordinary weight. Help implies action. It is not just comfort, it is intervention. God is not watching from afar. He steps in. He gets involved. He supports you not only emotionally but practically. When you reach the end of your plan, He is already working in ways you cannot yet see. And then the verse concludes with this assurance: "I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." Picture that for a moment. The Creator of the universe, not pushing you forward, not pulling you along, but holding you upright. It is the image of a parent holding a child who is too tired to walk. a child who cannot go any farther on their own. That child does not need to prove anything. They do not need to explain how exhausted they are. The parent knows and lifts. The righteous right hand symbolizes both strength and justice. It is not a careless hold. It is deliberate. It is stable. It is strong enough to carry not just your body, but your burdens, your questions, your fear itself. You are not being supported by a fragile hope or a half-hearted promise. You are being upheld by a hand that never falters. When this verse is truly believed, something shifts, not necessarily in the situation, but in the soul. Fear begins to lose its grip when you realize that presence is more powerful than prediction, that being held is more important than being in control. Courage, then, is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to trust the one who holds you in it. Many have tried to overcome fear with willpower. They try to suppress it, ignore it, or drown it out with distraction. But Isaiah 41 verse 10 invites a different approach. It invites surrender, not to the fear, but to the presence that casts it out. Not to the chaos, but to the calm voice that says, I am with you. This verse has become an anchor for those standing at the edge of something uncertain. It has been read before surgeries, whispered during sleepless nights, memorized by soldiers, spoken by mothers, carried by those walking through valleys too deep for words. And in every case, its power was not diminished by repetition. Because this verse does not lose strength the more it is leaned on, it multiplies. The world offers shallow reassurances in times of fear. It tells you to believe in yourself, to be strong, to push through. But God does something better. He does not give you a pep talk, He gives you Himself. That is what makes this verse more than poetry. It is a covenant, a declaration, a shield. And when it is taken to heart, it does not just reduce fear, it removes it. When you feel overwhelmed by the unknown, come back to these words, not just as something to read, but something to rely on. Let every phrase become a breath prayer. Let it steady your heartbeat. Let it remind you of the one who walks beside you. The one who says, do not fear, not because there is nothing to fear, but because nothing is greater than Him. And when fear returns, as it often does, you will not have to pretend it is not there. You will just need to remember who is, the one who strengthens, the one who helps, the one who upholds with a hand that never lets go. So if the sun sets you free, you will be free indeed. It is a word that is often used, often longed for, and yet so often misunderstood. People search for it in independence, in financial security, in relationships, or in the absence of responsibility. But the kind of freedom Jesus speaks of in John 8 verse 36 is not something you can earn or achieve. It is something you receive, and it is far deeper than circumstance. It is the freedom of the soul. So if the sun sets you free, you will be free indeed. These are not empty words. They are a declaration of war against everything that holds humanity captive. This is not freedom in theory. It is freedom in reality. Not a concept, but a condition. A new state of being brought about not by willpower, not by effort, but by the intervention of the Son Himself. To truly understand the power of this verse, we must understand the nature of the chains it breaks. These chains are not always visible. They are often hidden, masked by a smile, buried beneath busyness, disguised by distraction. They can take the form of addictions that slowly consume a person's sense of control. They can be regrets that haunt the mind long after an event has passed. They can be guilt that weighs heavier with time, or cycles of destructive behavior that seem impossible to stop. There are also chains formed by words. Words spoken over someone in childhood, words that declared them unworthy, unlovable, not enough. These lies settle in the heart and build prisons from within. Many people live outwardly free, but inwardly bound. They function, they succeed, they survive, but they are not truly free. Jesus did not come to put a band-aid on these wounds. He did not come to help us cope with our captivity. He came to destroy it. His mission was not management, it was liberation. He came to expose the chains, confront the captor, and offer something that could not be stolen, silenced, or sold. When he speaks of freedom, he is speaking of a release so complete it redefines a person's very identity. Freedom. Freedom in Christ is not based on performance. That truth alone dismantles so many of the lies we carry, because we live in a world that ties value to achievement. Do more, and you will be more. Fail, and you are a failure. But grace speaks another language. Grace says, you are not what you have done. You are not what was done to you. You are who I say you are. And when the Son declares you free, no other voice has the authority to contradict him. This freedom also speaks to shame. Shame tells you that you must hide, that if people really knew you, they would leave. But the freedom Jesus offers does not require hiding. In fact, it thrives in the light. It says you can bring it all here, the scars, the secrets, the shame, and I will not turn away. Because the Son does not free only the parts of us that are presentable. He frees the parts that we are afraid to face. It is important to note that the freedom Christ gives is not the absence of struggle. You may still wrestle with temptation, still feel the pull of old patterns, but freedom is the power to say no. It is the grace to rise when you fall. It is the truth that you are no longer a slave to what once controlled you. The chains may try to reattach, but they have lost their legal claim. You are no longer theirs. Many people carry hidden burdens. They carry the guilt of decisions made in desperation, the weight of relationships that were broken, beyond repair, the quiet torment of believing they can never change. But this verse stands as a lighthouse in the fog. So if the Son sets you free, you will be free indeed. That is not a temporary fix. That is not a conditional clause. That is a promise. There is a difference between being released and being free. Some are released from a situation, but still live like prisoners. Their body is out, but their mind is still in. Jesus offers more than release. He offers freedom that reaches into the deepest levels of your being. He does not simply open the door. He walks with you out of the cell. He does not just remove the chains. He heals the bruises they left behind. This promise of freedom also invites response. It is one thing to know about the verse. It is another to live by it, to trust that it applies to you, to invite the Son into the areas of your life that still feel locked, still feel bound, still feel hidden. That invitation is not about having the right words. It is about honesty, about saying, I cannot fix this, but you can. And in that surrender, freedom begins. Real freedom always transforms. It changes how you see yourself. It changes how you walk through life. It gives you the courage to let go of the past and the faith to move toward a new future. You are not meant to carry what Christ already carried for you. You are not meant to remain in a prison whose walls he has already broken. There are many voices in this world that will tell you freedom is an illusion, that people never really change, that the past always wins. But this verse answers all of them with a single truth. You will be free indeed, not just emotionally, not just temporarily, but fully, truly, permanently free. That is what the Son offers. That is what the Son delivers. Reflect for a moment. What still binds you? What still whispers lies when you try to rest? What still follows you like a shadow even in bright moments? Bring it forward. Name it. Hold it up to the light of this promise and listen again. So if the Son sets you free, you will be free indeed. For I am convinced that neither death nor life, neither angels nor demons, neither the present nor the future, nor any powers, neither height nor depth, nor anything else in all creation will be able to separate us from the love of God that is in Christ Jesus our Lord. There is something profoundly powerful about being convinced. It is more than a fleeting feeling. It is deeper than hope, stronger than assumption. It is a settled confidence, the kind that nothing can shake. And that is how the writer speaks in Romans 8 verses 38 and 39. Not with hesitation, not with uncertainty, but with absolute assurance. He is convinced, utterly persuaded, that nothing can separate us from the love of God. This love is not circumstantial. It does not fluctuate with mood or merit. It does not diminish with failure. It does not disappear in dark seasons. It does not give up when you give in. It remains unbroken, unchanged, unstoppable. There are many types of love in this world, and most of them come with conditions. They come with limits. They are given when things are good and pulled back when things fall apart. But this love is different. It is not transactional. It is not measured by performance. It is not defined by worthiness. It is the kind of love that pursues when you run, that covers when you fall, that lifts when you collapse. It is not a feeling. It is a force. The verse begins with extremes, neither death nor life, the greatest threat and the greatest mystery, both powerless to separate you from this love. Death cannot steal it. Life cannot dilute it. No moment on either side of the grave has the authority to disrupt it. That alone is enough to quiet so many fears, because if love survives death, then it is truly eternal. Then it continues, neither angels nor demons, not even the supernatural realm, has the power to undo what God has declared. No spiritual being, no force in heaven or in hell can override the decision God has made to love you. This love is not up for negotiation. It has been set, anchored, final. Neither the present nor the future. That addresses time itself. What you are facing now and what you will face later, none of it can break this bond. Your current struggles do not disqualify you. Your future failures will not sever it. You may drift, but His love does not. You may forget, but He remembers. The love of God does not expire. It outlasts every season. The verse also says, nor any powers. This covers systems, rulers, governments, institutions, any authority that might try to say you are not enough. The love of God bypasses every earthly throne. It is not subject to political changes or cultural trends. It is above all of it, untouched, secure. Then we read, neither height nor depth. This is the language of scale. No matter how high you climb or how far you fall, love remains. In your mountaintop moments, it is there. In your lowest, most hidden valleys, it is there. The extremes of emotion, of experience, of location, none of them are too much for this love to reach. And then comes the final declaration, nor anything else in all creation. This is not just poetic, it is exhaustive. It is the writer's way of saying, if I missed something, this covers it too. Nothing created, no person, no force, no event, no regret can remove you from the embrace of God's love, not even you, not even your doubts, your self-hatred, your shame. That is where this message becomes personal, because many believe in God's love in theory, but struggle to believe it applies to them. They assume there must be an exception, and they are the exception. They assume that their past is too messy, their mistakes too big, their scars too deep. But the truth is this, there are no loopholes in this promise. If you are part of creation, then this applies to you. This love is not passive. It is fierce. It is not gentle because it is weak. It is gentle because it is strong. It does not need to prove itself, but it does anyway again and again. In every sunrise, in every breath, in every whisper of grace, it shows up. And when you resist it, it waits. When you run, it follows. When you hide, it searches. It is relentless, not in control, but in care. We live in a world that often says, you are only as loved as you are lovable. And then it sets impossible standards for what lovable looks like. But God's love does not play by those rules. It sees you fully and still chooses you completely. Not because of what you do, but because of who He is. That is what makes it so unshakable. There is healing in knowing that nothing can separate you from love, because when people walk away, this love stays. When your thoughts turn dark, this love holds steady. When your faith feels fragile, this love does not break. It is not based on your ability to hold on. It is based on His promise never to let go. When this truth begins to sink in, something changes. You stop trying to earn love and start resting in it. You stop performing and start receiving. You stop running and start returning. This love is not the end of the journey. It is the foundation of it. Everything begins here. Every step forward, every act of courage, every moment of hope, it all starts with the deep, unshakable truth that you are loved. If nothing in all creation can separate you from the love of God, then nothing can define you more than that love. Not your success, not your failure, not your trauma, not your sin. You are not what has happened to you. You are not what you fear you are. You are loved, fully, right now. Let that truth sit with you. Let it challenge the voices that say you are unworthy. Let it silence the lies that tell you you are alone. Let it remind you that no matter where you have been or what you have done, you are still held, still seen, still loved. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to Him, and He will make your paths straight. There is a quiet battle that plays out in every heart, the desire to be in control and the deep longing to rest. We crave certainty, clarity, predictability. We want to know the outcome before we take the first step. We map out plans, weigh the pros and cons, gather information. And when life does not unfold the way we expected, panic begins to rise. That is where this verse from Proverbs becomes more than advice. It becomes a lifeline. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Trust is not just belief, it is dependence. It is the decision to place the weight of your life in someone else's hands. To trust with all your heart means to hold nothing back, not partial trust, not temporary trust, but full surrender. It is not the same as understanding. Trust is what you do when understanding is not enough. This is one of the hardest things for many people to accept, especially those who have been hurt. People who have been betrayed, abandoned, or let down often find it difficult to trust. Their instincts tell them to protect themselves, to build walls, to avoid vulnerability. But here the invitation is to do the opposite, not because people are always trustworthy, but because the Lord is. God does not ask for blind faith. He invites informed trust. Trust built on His track record, His nature, His promises. This is the kind of trust that takes time to grow, but once it does, it becomes a refuge. When everything else feels unsure, this trust becomes an anchor, not in the certainty of what will happen, but in the certainty of who is leading. Then we read, "Lean not on your own understanding." This is where the real challenge begins, because leaning is natural. When life becomes unstable, we reach for what feels familiar. We lean on our intellect, our experience, our instincts. But the verse warns us, your understanding has limits. Your logic can only go so far. There are things happening beyond what you can see, beyond what you can reason. To lean not on your own understanding is not to abandon thinking. It is to recognize its place. It is to admit that there is a perspective higher than yours, that your plans, however well thought out, are incomplete without God's input. Your understanding may provide information, but it cannot provide revelation. And it is revelation, divine insight, that leads to peace. In all your ways submit to Him. This is not a casual suggestion. It is a call to alignment. Submission is not about losing identity, it is about finding purpose. To submit your ways is to bring every area of your life under God's authority. Your relationships, your goals, your money, your emotions, your decisions. It is not just a spiritual act, it is a practical one. It is the daily choice to say, "Not my way, but yours." This kind of submission is not forced, it is chosen, and it is not passive, it is active. It means asking God not only to bless your plans, but to shape them, to adjust them if needed, to stop them if necessary. It means staying open, staying soft, staying available, and then comes the promise. And He will make your paths straight. This does not mean the path will be easy. It means it will be directed. It will be purposeful. Straight paths are not about comfort, they are about clarity. God does not promise a smooth road, but He does promise a guided one. You will not walk in circles. You will not be left in confusion. You will be led. There is a peace that comes when you know you are not the one holding everything together. When you no longer feel the pressure to predict every outcome. When you stop demanding clarity and start asking for direction. That is where peace begins. Not in knowing what will happen next, but in knowing who is already there. Some may wonder, what does it actually look like to trust the Lord with all your heart? It starts in the quiet places. In the morning when you wake up and ask God, what do you want me to see today? In the middle of a hard decision when you pause and pray, lead me, even if it means letting go of what I want. In the confusion when your thoughts race and you breathe out the simple prayer, I trust you. Trust is not always loud. It often looks like stillness, like silence when you want to speak, like waiting when you want to act, like peace in the middle of uncertainty. It is not always dramatic. Sometimes it is simply the refusal to panic. The more you trust, the more you will notice something shift inside you. Anxiety begins to lose its grip. Pressure begins to lift. Because when you submit your ways, you no longer have to carry the weight of the outcome. That is not your burden. That belongs to the one who sees the end from the beginning. God is not asking you to have it all figured out. He is not waiting for you to prove your wisdom. He is simply asking for your heart. Not your perfect understanding, but your surrendered one. Because trust is not about knowing every answer. It is about knowing the one who does. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. These words have echoed across generations, stitched into journals, framed on walls, spoken at graduations, and clung to during dark nights. Jeremiah 29 verse 11 is among the most recognized promises in Scripture, yet its true depth often remains hidden beneath familiarity. It is more than a comforting sentence. It is a revelation of God's heart in moments when His people feel furthest from home. The original audience of this promise was not standing on the mountaintop. They were not basking in success or celebrating progress. They were exiles, removed from their homeland, cut off from their rhythms, surrounded by uncertainty. Everything familiar had been taken from them. The temple, their land, their sense of purpose, it was all gone. And into that loss, God speaks, not with condemnation, not with judgment, but with a promise. I know the plans I have for you. Not vague hopes, not guesses, plans. That word implies intention, design, forethought. God is not improvising your life. He is not reacting to circumstances. He is orchestrating. Even when it feels like everything is unraveling, He is weaving, and the emphasis is striking. He knows. You may not, others may not, but He does. This is hope that sees further than the present, because the people who first heard this verse were in the middle of a 70-year exile. Their current situation did not reflect prosperity. Their hearts were heavy, their future uncertain. Yet in that place, God declared a future they could not yet see. He was not ignoring their pain. He was lifting their perspective. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. This is a verse of contrast between what they felt and what was true, between what they feared and what God intended. To prosper does not always mean material gain. It means to grow, to thrive, to become who you were made to be. And just as important, the plans are not to harm you. That alone is enough to dismantle many lies. Because when life hurts, the temptation is to believe that God is distant, or worse, that he is cruel. But this verse answers that whisper with a clear voice. Harm is not his plan for you. Plans to give you hope and a future. Hope is not wishful thinking. It is confidence rooted in character. God's plans are not grounded in our goodness, but in his. This means your mistakes do not cancel his intention. Your detours do not dismantle his design. The future he speaks of is not fragile. It is held in hands stronger than yours. And hope, real hope, gives you the strength to keep walking when the road ahead is unclear. This verse is not promising instant change. It is not a shortcut out of pain. It is a promise that your pain will not be wasted, that even in exile, even in confusion, in delay, in silence, there is a plan, a purpose, a process, one that is working for your good even when it does not feel like it. Because God's plans are not built on your timeline, they are built on eternity. It is important to notice something else about this promise. It was not spoken in private. It was a public word delivered to a people group. This means that sometimes the promise you are clinging to is not just about you. It is about generations. It is about legacy, about the people who will be impacted because you chose to believe in a future beyond what your eyes could see. When life feels directionless, it is easy to shrink into survival mode, to stop dreaming, to stop planning, to let hopelessness become your lens. But Jeremiah 29 verse 11 interrupts that cycle. It says, "Do not define your future by your present." The chapter around it is filled with instructions. Build houses, plant gardens, seek peace. In other words, live, not in denial of your exile, but in defiance of despair. God's plans are not abstract. They are deeply personal. They are tailored for your story, shaped for your needs, aligned with your design. You are not an accident navigating random events. You are a soul being led day by day towards something beautiful. And even when that beauty is hidden behind loss or confusion, it is still real. Let this promise shape how you see today. When nothing makes sense, remember, God still knows the plan. When doors close, when prayers seem unanswered, when delay feels like denial, he still knows. And his plans are not reactive, they are redemptive. Even your detours are accounted for. Even your pain has purpose. This verse is not about ignoring the hard parts of life. It is about refusing to believe that they are the whole story. God sees the whole picture, and he declares that the ending is good, not because everything will go the way you want, but because everything will serve the purpose he has written. So if today feels heavy, if the future feels blurry, come back to these words, not as a cliche, but as a cornerstone. Let them settle deep in your spirit. I know the plans I have for you, to give you hope and a future. That hope is not an escape, it is an anchor. It grounds you, lifts you, reminds you that no matter where you are not forgotten. You are not overlooked. You are part of a plan bigger than pain, stronger than doubt, and filled with a future far more beautiful than you can imagine. My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. There are few words more familiar to the human heart than not enough, not strong enough, not good enough, not brave enough. These phrases echo silently in the minds of many, shaped by past failures, unmet expectations, or comparisons that cut deep. The world has built entire systems around hiding weakness, teaching that strength must always be on display and that to admit struggle is to invite shame. But in one sentence, 2 Corinthians 12 verse 9 turns all of that upside down. My grace is sufficient for you. That is the starting point, not your effort, not your resolve, not your appearance of having it all together. Grace, and not a little bit of grace, not a seasonal supply, not enough for just some days, sufficient grace, a steady, unshakable flow of divine empowerment, available in every moment, especially the ones where you feel like you have nothing left. These words were not written from a place of comfort or ease. The Apostle Paul wrote them in the context of pleading with God to remove what he called a thorn in the flesh, something painful, persistent, and seemingly limiting. We are not told exactly what that thorn was, but we are told the answer God gave. My grace is sufficient, not I will remove it, not you are strong enough to handle it, but I will meet you in it. This is where the meaning of grace becomes even clearer. Grace is not simply the forgiveness of sins, though it certainly includes that. Grace is the presence of God's power where your strength runs out. It is the divine supply that fills the gaps. It is the quiet force that carries you when your legs can no longer move. And it is not reserved for the strong. It is revealed in the weak. For my power is made perfect in weakness. That phrase breaks every rule of self-reliance. We are taught that weakness must be avoided, hidden, overcome. But God says, that is where I work best. His power is not threatened by your limitations. It is showcased through them. What the world labels as a liability, God uses as a stage. When you come to the end of yourself, you do not reach a void. You reach grace, you reach power, the kind that does not draw attention to itself, but to the one who gives it. That is what Paul discovered. And that is why, instead of resenting his weakness, he began to embrace it. He realized that pretending to be strong only blocked the very help he needed. But admitting weakness opened the door to something far greater. There is freedom in no longer needing to perform, in no longer needing to explain why you are struggling, in no longer needing to impress anyone, including yourself. God does not wait for you to become strong before he works through you. He does not require a cleaned-up version of your story. He enters the cracks. He moves through the flaws. He shines through the scars. That scar on your heart, that moment of failure, that place of insecurity, it is not a barrier to God's power. It is a canvas for it. Because when others see your weakness, but also see your perseverance, they begin to ask how. And the answer is never you, it is always him. This truth invites a completely different posture toward pain. Instead of hiding, you can reveal. Instead of covering up, you can open up. Instead of striving, you can rest, not in defeat but in trust, because weakness, when surrendered, becomes a doorway for glory, a place where heaven meets earth, not in strength but in surrender. If you feel like your story is too broken, remember this: brokenness is not the end, it is the beginning. When you stop pretending and allow yourself to be known, you will discover that God does not just tolerate your weakness, he uses it. He weaves it into something beautiful, something that speaks louder than perfection ever could. The world may not understand this kind of strength. It may mock vulnerability, mistake gentleness for weakness, and measure value by performance. But God's kingdom operates differently. It is upside down in the best possible way. It honors honesty. It values surrender. It celebrates dependence, not as weakness, but as wisdom. So if you feel like you have nothing to offer, like your hands are empty, your energy depleted, your courage fading, do not retreat. Lean in, because grace meets you there. It always has, and it always will. Let these words settle in your soul. My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Let them become a lens through which you view yourself. Let them redefine what strength means, and let them free you from the burden of pretending. Your weakness does not disqualify you. It prepares you. It positions you. It creates space for God to do what only he can do. And when he moves through that space, it becomes clear this was never about your strength. It was always about his. Do not be anxious about anything. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. Anxiety often arrives without warning. It may begin as a restless thought, a tightness in the chest, or a quiet sense of dread that grows louder in the silence. It can come from things we cannot control, from fears we cannot name, from pressures we feel unprepared to carry. It interrupts sleep, crowds the mind, and blurs perspective. In our world, anxiety is not rare, it is widespread. It reaches into every age group, every background, every season of life. And yet, into that whirlwind, the words of Philippians 4 verses 6 and 7 speak with a stillness that feels almost unbelievable. Do not be anxious about anything. It is not a rebuke. It is not spoken with frustration. It is spoken with compassion, like a gentle hand laid on the shoulder of someone who cannot breathe. These are not cold instructions. They are a warm invitation. The verse does not say there will be nothing to be anxious about. It acknowledges life's tensions without glorifying them. It simply shifts the focus. Instead of being consumed by anxiety, it calls the heart to something else. But in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. Prayer is not a last resort. It is the first step into peace. It is not a performance. It is a pouring out. And that pouring out does not require perfect words. You do not need eloquence. You need honesty. Prayer is where you bring your fears, your confusion, your questions, your burdens. It is where you speak, not to the air, but to the one who listens with infinite care. The verse mentions not just prayer, but petition. This is focused, specific prayer. It is more than a casual conversation. It is a plea, a cry, a direct request from the heart. It is an act of trust that says, I believe you hear me, I believe you care, and I believe you can do something about this. But alongside petition comes something surprising: thanksgiving. Gratitude in the midst of anxiety feels unnatural, even backwards. And yet it is powerful. Because thanksgiving shifts the lens. It reminds you of what God has already done. It breaks the grip of scarcity by pointing to evidence of provision. It brings light into the corners that fear tries to darken. Gratitude is not denial, it is declaration. It says, I remember who you are. When you bring your requests to God this way, with prayer, petition, and thanksgiving, something happens. Something deeper than emotion, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. This is not a peace you manufacture, it is a peace you receive. This peace is not logical, it is not dependent on circumstances. That is why it transcends understanding. It is not the result of everything being resolved. It is the presence of calm while things are still unresolved. It is not a fragile peace that comes and goes. It is a supernatural calm that settles deep and stays, even when the storm does not stop. And this peace does not just visit, it guards. That word implies action, defense, watchfulness. It guards your heart where emotions live. It guards your mind where thoughts spiral. It stands as a shield against fear, against lies, against the noise that tries to steal your clarity. And this peace is not generic, it is rooted in Christ Jesus. That is the foundation, that is the source. You are not being asked to eliminate anxiety through effort. You are being invited to exchange it for peace through trust. To bring what burdens you and leave it in hands stronger than yours. And this is not a one-time act. It is a rhythm, a daily choice, sometimes an hourly one. The more you practice it, the more it becomes your posture. This peace is not just for crisis moments. It is for everyday life, for meetings, for decisions, for parenting, for loneliness, for health scares, for financial stress. It is for the times when you do not know what to do, and for the times when you think you do, but still feel unsure. It is for real life, for your life. Many people carry anxiety like a second skin. It becomes part of how they function, how they plan, how they relate to the world. But it does not have to stay that way. The promise of Philippians 4 is not that life will be without chaos, but that in the chaos you can carry calm. This peace is not passive. It changes how you live. It slows the pace. It clears the mind. It creates space for discernment. It anchors you in something bigger than the moment. And when others see that calm, they notice. Because it is rare, it is different, it points beyond you. The Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. There is something timeless about the words of Psalm 23. They are familiar to many, often recited in moments of both peace and pain. But beneath their poetic rhythm lies a depth that speaks to every human heart. It begins with a declaration, simple yet profound. The Lord is my shepherd. Not a stranger, not a distant deity, not a rigid judge. A shepherd, one who leads, one who protects, one who stays close. The shepherd is not a symbol of status, but of care. In ancient times, shepherds were often overlooked, considered lowly, yet they held one of the most tender roles. Their task was to know their sheep, not just as a group, but individually. To guide them to green pastures, to defend them from danger, to carry them when they were weak. And that is how the Lord describes himself. The Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing. These are words of trust, not of circumstance. It does not mean the psalmist had everything he wanted. It means he knew he was under the care of someone who would never fail to provide what was truly needed. There is a deep rest that comes when you believe that your needs are known and that the one responsible for meeting them is both willing and able. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. This is not forced rest. It is rest that flows from security. Sheep do not lie down when they are anxious, when they are hungry, or when they feel threatened. They only lie down when they feel safe. The shepherd creates that safety. He brings them to places of stillness, places where their soul can exhale. That is what God does. He brings you out of chaos and into calm, not by removing every trouble, but by bringing peace into the middle of it. He refreshes my soul. Life has a way of draining the soul, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually. The weight of grief, the pressure of expectations, the ache of loneliness, these things slowly wear you down. But the shepherd does not just manage your exhaustion. He restores you. He renews your inner being. He speaks life into the parts of you that felt numb or forgotten. He guides me along the right paths for his name's sake. The shepherd does not lead aimlessly. Every path he takes you on has purpose, even the ones that seem winding, even the ones that feel uphill. His guidance is not based on your perfection. It is rooted in his character. For his name's sake means that he stakes his own reputation on your journey. He will not abandon the path he has called you to walk. He will not mislead you. His name is attached to your story. And then comes the part that resonates in the deepest places of the heart. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Notice it does not say if, it says even though. Valleys are not detours, they are part of the path. Dark seasons are not evidence that you are lost. They are part of the journey with the shepherd, but you are not walking alone. In the valley, light is dim, shadows loom, and direction becomes unclear. It is easy to feel disoriented, to wonder if you've gone the wrong way. But the shepherd does not leave in the darkness. In fact, he draws closer. He leads not just in the daylight, but in the night. He does not outsource your care. He does not send you ahead. He walks beside you. I will fear no evil. That is not a denial of evil's presence. It is a refusal to let it rule. Evil may surround, but it does not control. Why? For you are with me. That is the hinge of the whole passage. The shepherd's presence is the difference between fear and peace. Not because the valley is easy, but because he is near. Your shepherd carries what you cannot. He sees what you cannot. He knows what lies ahead. And he does not grow tired. He does not forget you in the dark. When you are grieving, he grieves with you. When you are confused, he does not become frustrated. When you collapse, he does not condemn. He carries. There is great comfort in being known so deeply. in being led by someone who does not expect you to have all the answers, who is not surprised by your weakness, who does not get lost when the road turns. That is who the Lord is, not just in theory, but in every moment of your life. If you are walking through a valley right now, a valley of depression or loss or disappointment, do not rush through it. Do not assume you are abandoned. Look for the shepherd. Listen for his voice. He has not left. He is not waiting at the end of the valley. He is in it with you, step by step, breath by breath. And if the darkness feels too thick to see him, let this psalm be your reminder. He is guiding, he is guarding, he is giving you exactly what you need, even when you cannot feel it. His rod defends you. His staff steadies you. You are not walking alone. The valley may be real, the shadows may be long, but the shepherd is closer than the fear. His presence is your promise. And with him, even in the deepest valley, you lack nothing. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. There are few invitations as tender and as needed as these words from Jesus. They do not call the strong, the successful, or the self-sufficient. They call the weary, the burdened, the ones holding it all together with trembling hands, the ones smiling on the outside and breaking quietly within. It is not a demand, it is an invitation. And it is not to religion or routine or a system, it is to a person. Come to me, not to a doctrine, not to a schedule, to him. There is no barrier, no condition, no performance required. The only qualification is that you are tired. Tired of carrying weight that never lifts. Tired of trying to be enough. Tired of living as if everything depends on you. And to that exhaustion, Jesus says, come. It is easy to misunderstand what rest means. Many people associate it with escape, a vacation, a break from responsibility. But the rest Jesus offers is not the absence of responsibility. It is the presence of grace. It is not about withdrawing from life, but about finding a different way to live it. A way that does not depend on striving, proving, or achieving. I will give you rest. It is not earned. It is not a reward. It is a gift, freely offered, freely received. This rest is for the soul. It touches the places that no sleep or success or distraction can reach. It addresses the tiredness that lives under the surface, the kind that comes from carrying burdens that were never meant to be yours alone. Jesus continues, "Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart." A yoke was a wooden frame used to link animals together for shared labor. At first glance it seems strange. Why would rest be associated with a yoke? But the wisdom of this image lies in what it replaces. Jesus is not adding weight. He is offering to share the load. He is saying, walk with me. Let me carry the weight with you. Learn a different rhythm. And the rhythm he offers is not driven by fear or pressure. It is shaped by gentleness. It is led by humility. Jesus does not shout over you. He walks beside you. He does not scold you for being tired. He welcomes you. He does not add to your burden. He lifts it. This is not a call to laziness. It is a call to alignment. Rest, in this sense, is not the absence of movement. It is the presence of peace while moving. It is learning to do life not for God, but with Him, to let Him set the pace, to let Him define what matters, to stop sprinting toward worthiness and start walking in grace. Many carry invisible burdens. The pressure to be everything for everyone, the fear of failing, the shame of past mistakes, the relentless voice that says, you are behind, you are not doing enough. Jesus sees those burdens. He names them and then He says, let me carry that. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. These are not just poetic words. They are a promise. When you walk with Jesus, you begin to feel the difference. The heaviness begins to lift. The voice of shame grows quiet. The anxiety that used to own your mornings starts to lose its grip. Not because life becomes simple, but because you are no longer carrying it alone. This rest is not a one-time experience. It is a way of life, a posture of the heart. It is choosing again and again to come to Him in the middle of the day, in the mess, in the questions. It is choosing to believe that His shoulders are stronger than yours, that His way is better than yours, that His love is steady even when your efforts are not. If your soul is weary, if your heart feels burdened, listen closely. You are not asked to try harder. You are invited to come closer. You are not asked to figure it all out. You are invited to lay it all down. Rest is not the reward of the perfect. It is the gift for the willing. You do not need to be strong to come to Jesus. You only need to be honest. Honest about the weight you carry. Honest about the fatigue you feel. Honest about the ache you have tried to ignore. Because the rest He gives is not for the image you project. It is for the person you are. Let this invitation echo in your spirit. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. It is not just for yesterday. It is not just for someday. It is for right now, wherever you are, however you feel. The one who carries the universe is offering to carry you. Let your heart believe it. Let your soul receive it. This is the rest you've been searching for. You have now walked through some of the most life-changing verses in all of Scripture. These were not just ancient words, they were living truths, promises spoken over your pain, invitations into freedom, reminders of love. Each verse carried its own weight, but together they wove a story of hope, of healing, of transformation. A story that continues in you. You may not remember every phrase, but if one truth took root in your heart, let it grow. Let it become the lens through which you see yourself, your past, your future. Let it remind you that you are not walking this path alone. You are being led. You are being held. You are being loved more deeply than you can imagine. And now, if this message stirred something in you, if it brought peace, perspective, or simply reminded you that you're not forgotten, take one small step forward. Subscribe to this channel so you never miss another message like this. Like this video if it touched your heart. It helps more than you know. Leave a comment below. Share which verse spoke to you the most, or what moment meant the most in your journey. And share this video with someone who may be carrying a heavy burden today, a friend, a family member, someone quietly searching for hope. You never know how one verse, one message can change a life. Thank you for spending this time here. You are seen, you are valued, and your story is not finished yet. Keep walking, keep trusting. The best is still unfolding.